the rise of the House, I sat down with Senator Muma, and it was very interesting that she had an e-cigarette where on the outside cover, on the packaging, it talks about the dangers. But the moment you remove the package and you toss it out, then you will find that the e-cigarette itself looks like a toy. Mr. Speaker, I've just been handed this, and it's imperative because we have the youth sitting here. You will see that in this cigarette, it has a big warning here, very big warning. But the moment you toss this away, then you are left with this. The youth will actually sit with this e-cigarette, and it looks like a rubber. And they'll continue vaping. Actually, it looks like a power bank as well. They'll continue vaping. But the dangers in it is something that all of us, must be alive to the fact that we are killing the younger generation. So there's a question that Senator Muma raises, and she talks about flavors. Some of us, when we were growing, we knew people who were smoking what they call keraiko. When that person comes in 20 meters, you will note that that's a smoker. But today, there's no keraiko anymore. Someone will be able to smoke a strawberry flavor, walks in, and you think that they just had a strawberry milkshake. And yet, they are killing themselves. So those are the things that we are being invited to be able to debate and agree on how we are going to save the younger generation from being sick, from their lungs collapsing. Mr. Speaker, the good senator has raised one very important point in terms of, taxation. And this is an issue that we were agonizing on, because when we start talking about taxation, then we start discussing issues to do with money bills, which we know that the Senate, under Article 114 of our Constitution, it's sort of like in the borderline in terms of the origination of the money bills. It has to be from the lower house. But she talks about a very important thing which all of us must look into in this bill, so that by the time we go into the third reading of this bill, or the committee of the whole, the amendments that will be brought are amendments that will be able to enrich the bill, will be able to put up strict regulations, because it is imperative that all the taxes that are collected from the tobacco industry, either today they go to SHA, some of the money go to SHA, so that when you are taken to the hospital with your lungs having collapsed because of being a chain smoker, there will be money to pay for you, and that can come from there. Number two, Mr. Speaker, we discussed the issue of approval and testing. We agreed that it is important that we divide those two. Let the ministry approve, let KEBS test, so that we know whether what the kids are smoking is proper, and they set proper standards. Because I see my time is running up, let me reiterate that one of the things that Senator Muma we need to tighten is on strict regulations of the tobacco industry in this country. We must tighten strict regulations. We must make sure that, in fact, for me, I'm of the opinion that we increased the age of smoking from 18 to 21, such that if you are 21 years old, it's the only time that you can be allowed to buy a cigarette. Number two, Mr. Speaker, advertising, it is important. Yesterday, when we were sitting in the committee, I remember the argument that we had with the majority leader in this House when we were discussing the gambling bill, in terms of how can you restrict online advertisement in cigarettes? How can you restrict people from gambling online? There's such a gray line in terms of allowing advertisement, restricting advertisement. That is something that distinguished senators, we have to agree on. And in my view, I still feel that warnings are better than trying to say there is no online advertisement. Because when you say there's no online advertisement, there will be IP addresses from all over the world. You cannot stop them. And the youth will still be able to get into. So we need, in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I think it is important to be able to balance the economic concerns as well as the health concerns. It is imperative to be able to focus a lot on preventive rather than curatives. That is the only way that we can be able to develop legislation that can help, this population. So, Mr. Speaker, as I end, I would love to see a country where we are less population smoke. And in fact, Senator Muma would say that in Kenya has almost adapted to an environment where people don't smoke as much. If you go to Europe, everyone almost smokes. So we cannot compare the laws in Europe and the laws here. We have to say we are going to be completely unorthodox when it comes to legislation making and look at what fits this economy, what fits this population. I'd love to say no advertisement. Let's ban advertisement. I'd love to say let's stop smoking. In fact, my dear sister, Senator Veronica, yesterday was saying she wished that she was seconding a bill that will ban smoking in this country. That is not the reality. It can never happen. So because people will smoke, let us figure out how do we balance these economic concerns, because it's about money. In fact, what I would even propose is that when it comes to growing of tobacco in this country, it should be zoned to a particular region. When you zone it in that particular region, you'll know it's only that area which people will be able to smoke. One of the last things that the ministry was proposing in their submissions during public participation was amending the bill to make sure that the bill controls both substances with nicotine and those without nicotine. And for those who understand that marijuana does not have nicotine, I think the ministry was also getting into that area of saying that we now come up with one bill to control everything to do with any delivery system of nicotine and non-nicotine substances. So as I conclude, let me thank the good senator, but I want us to be realistic in terms of balancing the economic needs of this country versus the health of the population. Yes, tobacco kills, but can we run away from saying that we will now force every citizen of this country not to smoke? Let us be realistic that some will smoke. So stricter regulations, let us tax, and all that money, in my proposal, Mr. Speaker, sir, should go to SHA so that it treats those people. Very little should be left to preventive. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Senate Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this bill by Senator Catherine Muma, the Tobacco Control Amendment Bill 2024. A very important piece of legislation by our colleague, Senator Catherine Muma. This is for the history books, Mr. Speaker, like I had mentioned earlier, that should our colleague succeed to steer this bill through this House and subsequently to the counterpart House and provide clean, neat, and efficient coordination on the delivery, sale, manufacture, production of these products, Mr. Speaker, then she will have actually ticked the box, Mr. Speaker, in terms of being active legislators who are reacting actually to the demands of society as they arise. Because there are many challenges, Mr. Speaker, that come this day, which unfortunately as legislators, we sometimes don't react to. I know very little about smoking, Mr. Speaker, but I am a lawmaker. In fact, I must confess, Mr. Speaker, that I grew up at the time where raising a child was by the community. And therefore, one time as a 14-year-old had come the way of 5 Kenya shillings, Mr. Speaker. I went to a shop and bought a bar of cigarette. It was around 7:30 p.m. And I wanted to be cheeky just like any other teenager. No sooner had I lit it, Mr. Speaker, than a thunder of a slap fell on me from one of the neighborhood's elderly men. That up to date, Mr. Speaker, when I see somebody smoke, my cheeks twitch a bit, Mr. Speaker, when I recall that hard slap from that gentleman. And I have never tried again in my life. But I know, Senator Muma, that I'm a lawmaker, and we must do laws for those that smoke and those that don't. That the people who send me to this house to pass law, Mr. Speaker, should not ordinarily fit into my taste and preferences. I must do law for them, including those that I do not agree with, and the things that perhaps I may not like. And this is why I find this piece of legislation from you to be quite ingenious of a legislator. I know Senator Muma is passionate about this topic, Mr. Speaker, because it's been more than a year, actually, that she has been hunting me on this bill and saying, please help me, we need to conclude on this issue. Are you not concerned? And she keeps on reminding me that you may not see it as a problem right now because your kids are way younger. But remember, in another 10 years, you may not have luxury. You don't want to look back and say, I wish I had done something about it. Because the truth of the matter, Mr. Speaker, is that there's actually drugs and substance that is finding its way into the hands of our children and society, Mr. Speaker, in the form of e-cigarettes because of the lack of proper regulatory framework to govern that particular space, Mr. Speaker. And I like the fact that Senator Muma is very specific on this bill, that actually it's nicotine-related substance, including e-cigarettes, Mr. Speaker. These very cool things that young people carry in their handbags, Mr. Speaker, in their pockets, which ordinarily you may not even easily recognize to be a substance that can harm their health, Mr. Speaker. And they take it in a very nice, easy, and relaxed way in public fora, Mr. Speaker, in places where ideally, actually, they shouldn't be taking them. You know that smoking in this country, Mr. Speaker, is restricted to particular zones, Mr. Speaker, away from public spaces, Mr. Speaker. And that law is one of the most successfully implemented legislations as part and parcel of what Parliament does. I think that law was passed in 2007. And you remember the hue and cry that was around this town. Because previously, back in the day, if you recall, people would walk about smoking and doing whatever they want, even in the streets of Nairobi, Nakuru, whichever parts of the country, and they'll blow the fumes into your face until somebody, just another legislator like what Senator Muma is trying to do, Mr. Speaker, thought about it and said, wait a minute, this is not right. You cannot be puffing out fumes in a public transport vehicle, Mr. Speaker, in a library, in a shopping center, where there are young children, there are elderly people, there are people with health challenges, and they decided to restrict that particular space. And since then, up to date, that law is respected and applied in very strict consideration, Mr. Speaker, together with the fines. And I like that about work that has been done in this House, Mr. Speaker. You know, many times people speak and forget that Parliament, as an institution, has actually passed very progressive legislation over the years. It's only that on occasions where people disagree for whatever reason on a particular topic, Mr. Speaker, that they cast Parliament in very bad light and say, oh, it's the weakest link in our democracy and things like that. Yet I know so many spheres of our society that Parliament has actually successfully been able, Mr. Speaker, to give us legislation and good laws that have enabled us, Mr. Speaker, to live in a better country. That is just one such example. And therefore, I like this bill together with the provisions, Mr. Speaker, with the definitions actually that are being either altered, deleted, or added into the previous Tobacco Act, Control Act of 2007, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate that Senator Muma actually expands the definition of what are tobacco products. That's very important, because in a litigious country like ours, where judges sometimes make certain decisions and when you try to reflect back on it, you say, even if the language might have been a challenge, surely, was that the spirit and the object of what Parliament or the lawmakers intended? Because, Mr. Speaker, we've had arguments, including even on whether should have been an AM or a PM, while when you're reading that particular legislation, you can flow through and notice actually what was the intention of the House. And there are many times, I know in the Senate we may not have dealt with this, but I know there are many times actually that National Assembly, for example, especially in matters of tax, have been asked to provide more clearer definition, Mr. Speaker, on certain legislations that have been passed. And on account of that, people have gone to court, Mr. Speaker, to challenge the intention of the House. Even on an issue as simple as a date, a law that has been signed, Mr. Speaker, in January, then somehow, Mr. Speaker, in the reading and in the interpretation, maybe the fine print of the definition wasn't so meticulous. And you find that there's a way you can read it, Mr. Speaker, that will reflect to times gone by instead of times that are ahead, Mr. Speaker. And the courts have agreed with the petitioners. Therefore, This is important, the expansion of definition. And this is something, Mr. Speaker, that I want even our legislative drafting department to be keen about it. That nowadays, Mr. Speaker, given the country that we live in, definitions are extremely important. And it's important to expand, Mr. Speaker, and appreciate that in a country such as ours, we can lose very good intentions such as this bill, Senator Muma, on account of just a definition. I say that to make the point, Mr. Speaker, that it is not for lack of work to do, but it is out of the abundance of caution that actually these new phrases are being introduced into our bills where you're expanding the definition. Ideally, somebody will think and say, everybody knows that nicotine is a tobacco product, or things such as those. But on many occasions, until you provide it in black and white, as has been done in this bill, which include tobacco leaves and extracts, you know, Mr. Speaker, that you have to define even and say even the extracts alone is important, including actually synthetic formations, which is a substance such as what Senator Ledama was showing. Otherwise, somebody will easily argue and say that this is just an extract. It doesn't contain those things that you speak about. Additives also, Mr. Speaker, it's important because there can be argument about that what is a dominant product in this item. In fact, many of these vapes and the things that you're talking about, Senator Muma, 80% are actually non-harmful substance. It's just a cool smoke. I don't know how they are able to generate it. And the nicotine substance is a very small element or percentage of it. That's why it's very popular with young people. It is important the way you're doing, you're including actually additives that may be added, you know, which means a substance other than tobacco that is added to a tobacco product unit pack or packet, including flavors that are being defined, Mr. Speaker. There is definition also of the electronic cigarette, what it could mean, because it need not be, and I like part B of this drafting, that it is not a medical substance or medical device as defined in Pharmacy and Poisons Act. Why is this important, Senator Muma? Because the provisions of this act have previously been abused by people who consider that these are devices that are health devices. You know, in the administration of tax, Senator Muma, even on tax alone, definitions are very important, because when determining the coding for where an instrument will fall under, Mr. Speaker, it depends on what Parliament defined it as. Many of these devices can easily pass as medical devices, Mr. Speaker, if the clarity is not provided as is being done in this particular law. There are people who import, and they import it alongside other medical substances. And when they are packaged in whatever country of origin, Mr. Speaker, a simple collusion between the exporting country and the agencies here locally would easily pass some of these items alongside other medical devices, Mr. Speaker, and causing more harm or denying even the country revenue that will have been realized, Mr. Speaker, from the sale of this substance. There are more details that are provided deep down into the bill, Mr. Speaker, including manufacture or place, clause 14 particularly, Mr. Speaker, where the principal act is being, actually clause 14 of the principal act, which is being amended by clause 7 of the bill, Mr. Speaker, where a person shall not manufacture or place on the market, sale and distribution or use of electronic nicotine delivery system or refill container uses unless the conditions are being provided. The nicotine containing liquid is contained in a dedicated refill container not exceeding volume of 10 millimeters in a disposable electronic cigarette or in a single-use cartridge, and that the cartridges or tank does not exceed the volume of 2 milliliters, actually, not millimeters, milliliters. Then B, the nicotine containing liquid does not contain nicotine exceeding 10 milligrams per millimeter. There is need, Senator Catherine, the way that word is drafted. Remember what I mentioned earlier about fluency in legislation. The way that word is written, somebody will easily confuse and think that it is one word. Yet I know for a fact that it is milligrams per millimeter. Yet the way it's written, you would easily confuse and think it's 2 words instead of 3. I have earlier spoken to, I need not repeat myself, on the need for us as a legislature to ensure that we actually provide clarity in all these bills. Otherwise, people can go to court and what is it that Kenyan judiciary cannot do, Mr. Speaker. If they have invented something called, what is it called? This one where if you're anticipating arrest, it's called an anticipatory bail. I'm struggling to recall other parts of the world that dishes them out so voluntarily. That if you know that you have committed a crime and you suspect that they may come for you, Mr. Speaker, you go and get it, and it's granted like ice cream, Mr. Speaker. I don't know about it, but just warning that we have to be careful about a particular thing. There is Part B of that clause 14, which speaks to an area which will be of concern to all the young legislators that are here, on the nicotine pouches, Mr. Speaker, that in the way they are made, those pouches should be child and tamper-proof and can be used without spilling their contents. Because the fancy way in which some of these pouches are made, Mr. Speaker, a kid, even walking with a father into a supermarket, Mr. Speaker, can easily pick them out and confuse them for a sweet or a lollipop, Mr. Speaker, if this is not properly defined, that the access to this content that is inside these pouches, Mr. Speaker, should be so difficult that a kid will struggle to actually access it. Otherwise, if it is just easy to access it, Mr. Speaker, and I hope, Senator Muma, that the Health Department, when approving the containers or these pouches where this substance are sold, will take that into consideration, considering and knowing full well, Mr. Speaker, that these are things that can be very harmful to children. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, Senator Muma, you did not mention, or perhaps maybe it's further down in the bill, and I may have missed it somewhere, into what changes you may want to bring into the Tobacco Control Board. Because that institution, if you remember when the Cabinet Secretary for Health was last year responding to question time before the Senate, I think it was Senator Manzo who had asked something on the administration of funds in the Tobacco Control Fund, in that tobacco fund, Mr. Speaker. And there were not very good vibes that were coming out of that particular statement. In fact, the minister said on the record of this House, and not just an ordinary minister, a minister who served as majority leader for 8 years. So he knew what he was saying. He said, I'm not satisfied with the answer that has been provided. This statement was prepared for me, and I only got to see it this morning. I will be unfair to you as a House if I just read through. Give me time to come back with a more comprehensive answer. I found that to be quite telling, Mr. Speaker, because when a minister raises alarm on how certain funds are being used, Senator Muma, perhaps at the committee of the whole, we may want to tie up that particular institution and ensure that those funds are actually used for the purpose for which it was meant. These businesses of creating a fund where you're only enriching a few fat cats at ministries, Mr. Speaker, who go for seminars across the world from this one to the other without implementing a single item of the things that they run from these conferences, must come to an end. We must put a capping on any of these fundings, particularly sink funds, like this one of the tobacco, where monies are realized from a particular product and they need to be used to either respond to the health challenges that arise from the use of that particular product, Mr. Speaker, or to teach citizens on the benefits or otherwise of this product, Mr. Speaker, then that is what it needs to be doing. It cannot be, Mr. Speaker, that you have a fund where if you check what has been their contribution into improving the livelihoods of citizens, Mr. Speaker, it's all about conferences and trips for those that have access to these funds, Mr. Speaker. You need to put a capping, Mr. Speaker. 85%. I've always spoken of the genius of CDF and why CDF continues, and I say this fully aware of the matters that are before us, why it continues to be a darling of the citizens in terms of any public funds, Mr. Speaker, it is because of the capping that has been provided on how much you can use on administrative issues. 2.75% maximum. The rest, over 95%, actual work that can be demonstrated to citizens and says, these are your funds. If we don't have any better use of those resources, take it to the critical illness fund that we created under SHA. Because in any case, at the end of the day, many of the users of this product will eventually burden our public health infrastructure. Therefore, there is no harm, Mr. Speaker, putting those funds into public utility. But to be used, Mr. Speaker, to do the kind of things that I heard Senator Maanzo say on that particular fund puts to question so many other things, Mr. Speaker. And I hope when Cabinet Secretary Duale returns to this House, he will remember to bring us that response, because while we are actively considering this bill, Mr. Speaker, that is an item that need not disappear to us. I know even other things, colleagues, that in that institution, because they license, and Senator Muma, why we must rejig that institution, is that sometimes it is used to fight corporate wars, where when an entity wants to take domination of a particular product line, they use officers from that agency to either ban or frustrate the growth of their competitors, Mr. Speaker. And that case, or that incident has been recorded on so many occasions, Mr. Speaker, before us, in the media circles, and this is something that should be of concern to us. And therefore, I hope, Mr. Speaker, that because I know we will get the chance to consider all these things, we will reflect on how to administer that particular fund in this space in a better and neater way. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support and hope that we can improve on this legislation to make it better. I thank you.
Senator Eddie Okech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute on the Tobacco Control Amendment Bill 2024. And from the onset, to congratulate Senator Muma, who serves as a member of Speaker's panel. This is a critical. Mr. Speaker, legislation is a moving target. If you have watched a movie called Moving Target or Hard Target, one of the leading lights in that movie, Mr. Speaker, is trying to get a perfect shot, but it gets moving. So in 2007, when our colleague, distinguished members of parliament, and I don't know, Mr. Speaker, you were serving then or not, because I was still fairly young then, that when they legislated, the challenge then was smoking in public, and whether public places could be considered to be smoking. So, Speaker, with the advance of technology, you have to appreciate that going into the future, we'll keep legislating on matters of technology, because these electronic cigarettes, e-cigarettes, Mr. Speaker, I remember when I traveled to the US a few years ago, I was honored to have dinner with one of the senior leaders in this country. And apparently, as we were having chit-chat, that senior leader continued smoking the e-cigarette, and we didn't realize until the smoke was coming out of his nostrils or the mouth. Then we realized, we asked a friend of mine, what is this? I think we were in the famous Manhattan Street in downtown of United Nations Street, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I don't want to name names, but of course, that person smoked, and we didn't find it odd because it was an e-cigarette. The only time we noticed is because of the flavor that was coming out, Mr. Speaker, and we became discomfort after some time. But I think I was also in the wrong company, Mr. Speaker, because a number of us were consuming hard substances. That was not definitely soda, or water or milk or juice, Mr. Speaker. And after that, when I went back to my hotel room in New Jersey, I had to do serious prayers via phone with my pastor for cleansing after being in that session, which I found it unholy and unfortunate, Mr. Speaker. Well, personally, Mr. Speaker, I've never smoked in my life, and I don't think I will, because of my strict upbringing and religious background, Mr. Speaker, is we have to do what we have to do. There are people who smoke, there are others who don't smoke. But my argument, Mr. Speaker, has been this, that where your right ends, my right also begins. And I think as we legislate, we want to bring decency, discipline within the public forum, Mr. Speaker. We can't legislate on alcoholism, the issue of cigarettes, Mr. Speaker. But I want to appeal and call upon parents that we cannot legislate morals, Mr. Speaker, you are aware. Sometimes values and discipline are instilled by the parents.